Now we have strengthening regional collaborations through the WMO CGMS VLab pilot project supporting the EW4A2 initiative, or sharing experiences and best practices among regional training centers of excellence. So, Diego Sosa, the floor is yours, and yeah, you just can begin.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon or good evening. First of all, thank you very much for this opportunity to share our regional collaboration efforts. My name is Diego Souza from INPE, the Brazilian National Institute for Space Research. And today I'm going to share with you our regional pilot project called VLab in support of early warnings for all, which is a very nice example of successful collaboration among regional training centers of excellence. But before we start, I just would like to mention that these slides and links we are going to see are already available on ETR's Moodle page for this session. Okay? And throughout the presentation, we will explore this central question. How can we foster collaboration and coordinate training activities across different countries toward a common goal? In this case, the development of training materials to enhance satellite-based monitoring of regional priority weather hazards. And we will highlight the challenges, the successes, and the lessons learned along the way. But first, let me give you a bit of context and background information so you can understand how this project came about. Okay, and our project was created in response to the Early Warnings for All initiative and its call to action, that it's to make sure that everyone on Earth is protected from dangerous weather, climate, and environmental events through effective early warning systems by 2027, as called by UN Secretary General António Guterres in 2022. And the Early Warnings for All initiative is built on 4 pillars. 4 pillars designed to deliver effective and inclusive early warning systems, and each pillar is led by a different organization. Our project focuses on pillar number 2, which is led by WMO, the detection, observation, monitoring, analysis, and forecasting of hazards. Okay? This is an important pillar because it helps countries better understand and thus respond to weather hazards by utilizing data from different sources, including weather satellites, which provides real-time information and improves forecasts and makes early warnings faster and more reliable, even for remote communities. However, as identified by WMO, there are many challenges, and many countries struggle to use satellite information, either because they lack resources or technical infrastructure or trained staff to translate this complex satellite data into practical actions. And also, WMO conducted an assessment of capacity covering 51 developing countries, and over half of these countries operate with only basic monitoring and forecasting capacity, and about 1/5 operate with less than basic capacity. So there is a significant gap in observational capabilities, and you can access all these results in this interactive dashboard from the initiative. And in 2022, an executive action plan was launched, outlining the strategies needed to achieve global early warning coverage, including actions defined at the global level, regional level, and national level. And at the regional level, one key effort is to align existing strategies and existing initiatives with the early warnings for all goals. Okay, and that's exactly where our collaboration project began and took shape. Okay, now let's take a look at how our training project was structured. In the Americas, we have 5 virtual laboratories, 5 virtual laboratory centers of excellence, or CoEs as they're called, okay, which are responsible for meeting user training needs in satellite data utilization across our region. There is one COE in Barbados, 2 in Argentina, 1 in Costa Rica, and 1 in Brazil. And these COEs work with support from NOAA, which is one of our satellite operators in our region, through CIRA and Bernie Kona, who's in the call, and with the support from the WMO space program, okay? And each COE has a focal point who coordinates training activities within their centers and reports back to WMO. And for this project, the focal points coordinated and invited collaborators from their COEs to help develop training resources in their respective native languages, focusing on the monitoring of regional priority hazards using satellite data, okay? And one of these focal points, which is myself, served as the regional coordinator, helping to facilitate communication and ensure that the project progressed as planned. Okay. VLab, just as a reminder, okay? The VLab mission is to improve services by enabling members to utilize satellite data. And VLab includes many other COEs across different WMO regional organizations or regional associations, sorry. But for this pilot project, we focus specifically on the Americas, that is WMO regional associations 3 and 4, with the potential to be replicated in other regions in the future. So the purpose of the project was to develop training resources in our native languages, which is essential for regional impact. Barbados in English, Argentina and Costa Rica in Spanish, and Brazil in Portuguese. And the regional coordinator provided a template with an example set of training materials to help ensure some consistency across COEs, and also coordinated our participation in CALMet for sharing our experiences. So we have this virtual presentation, we have e-posters that I'm going to share the links soon. And the project was funded through the VLab Trust Fund, supported by the satellite operators, and each COE had a dedicated letter of undertaking, which included 9,000 Swiss francs per COE, and also clearly defined the deliverables and standards of performance, specifying that at least 2 regional priority hazards should be covered, that the training must include regional case studies demonstrating the use of both geostationary and low Earth orbit satellites for monitoring these hazards, that the final material should provide a minimum of 60 minutes of training, and that these resources should enable learners to apply what they see in the examples, meaning that all links to access the demonstrated satellite data and all the links for the online visualization tools and so on must be included in the training, along with the points of contact for the satellite products for further support. So, in a very high level, that was an overview of our project. Now let's talk a little bit about the coordination, which was crucial for this effort. The project was organized into 8 activities running from October 2024 to December 2025. And the first task was to identify which hazards each COE would address and ensure these hazards are aligned with the regional priorities, which we did through a survey. In parallel, the regional coordinator provided an example set of materials and a template to ensure some consistency across COEs. And next, each COE had 3 months to collect satellite data for their selected hazards and regional case studies. And between March and October, we entered the development phase, during which each COE created its modal training. And this phase ended on October 30th, after which COEs could request translation of their materials if they wished to share them beyond their native languages, okay? And then we planned to share our experiences and best practices with the community through conferences such as CALMet, using posters and presentations, and that's exactly what we are doing here right now. And finally, a closeout report will be prepared to conclude the project. So it was a significant amount of work, and we coordinated our activities through 7 teleconferences held throughout the project. And these meetings allowed us to present the project proposal, decide which hazards each COE would address, brainstorm and share ideas, discuss how to overcome challenges, and align internal coordination with our collaborators, right? So this was a very positive experience. And I think the VLab Centers of Excellence in the Americas are now more engaged than ever for future training activities. Okay, now let's take a look at the results. Also, some lessons learned and areas we can improve. As a result of this coordination, these were the hazards addressed by the VLab Centers of Excellence. CIMH in Barbados covered heat waves and floods. INPE in Brazil covered floods and squall lines. The University of Buenos Aires focused on wet spells and hail. The Argentine National Weather Service addressed fog and volcanic ash. And the University of Costa Rica worked on tropical cyclones and lightning. And this, I think this is a well-balanced set of hazards, and they are largely aligned with the priority hazards identified by various WMO initiatives. Here we have the Moodle links where you can enroll yourself using the provided self-enrollment keys. As I said, we have also uploaded these slides and information to ETR's Moodle page for this session. So you are more than welcome to explore the Moodle trainings and CALMet stacks created by our project participants. And after CalMet, we will begin promoting these trainings to our regional communities, as so far the links have only been shared within the project, but not yet more broadly across the region. And also, we had some little issues, as 4 of the 5 COEs completed their Moodle trainings in time for CalMet. But for example, our colleagues from Costa Rica will need a little bit more time to share their Moodle link. And this highlights an important lesson learned during the project, as each organization has different internal procedures for receiving project funding. And sometimes these processes are so lengthy that they cannot be completed within the project timeline. For example, of our 5 COEs participating in the project, only 2 of them received their funding a few weeks after the letters of undertaking were issued last year. 1 of them received it at the end of the project a couple of weeks ago, and 2 COEs, including INPE and the University of Costa Rica, were unable to receive the funding at all. So as a result, we collaborated on a best effort basis, which explains the slight delay in the materials from UCR. So taking into account each project's participant reality beforehand, especially regarding documentation and bureaucratic processes, is very important for future initiatives. So you can explore our links and Moodles. They are all open. This is the Moodle for SMN Argentina. This is the Moodle for CIMH. This is the Moodle for the University of Buenos Aires, with many sessions and information. And this is the one from Brazil with recordings, summaries, etc., a quiz at the end. And if participants get a grade equal or better than 70%, automatically a link for the certificate will appear. Okay. And also, we have our stacks for this project. So you can explore these stacks when you have the opportunity. Okay, this one is from Barbados, this one from Argentina, the Meteorological Service, this one is from the University of Buenos Aires, this one is from Brazil, and this one is from Bernie, covering VLab. And in terms of training structure, an interesting approach was to allow each COE to decide the structure of its course. During these teleconferences held in the development phase, probably 3 teleconferences, I think, as we shared our progress and brainstormed some ideas, the materials naturally evolved to align more closely with an overall structure suggested by the COEs. And the only elements suggested to be common across our trainings were first, a brief introduction to the Early Warnings for All initiative and the VLab pilot project, so participants could understand the origin of the course, and also a shared set of evaluation questions for feedback, which will allow us to consolidate feedback across all trainings and gain insights into our performance as a collective project. And for each project collaborator, a certificate of appreciation was issued by WMO, recognizing their valuable contribution to the project, highlighting the satellite skills and performance components addressed during the training, as listed in the guidelines on satellite skills and knowledge for operational meteorologists mentioned by Bernie after Alejandro's presentation. So for Brazil, for example, skill number 1, identify surface features as we covered floods. Skill number 3, identify and interpret broad-scale, synoptic, and mesoscale systems as we covered squall lines. Skill number 5, interpret derived fields and products, as our team extensively covered some derived products. And skill number 7, compare satellite data with NWP outputs, which was also covered during our training. Okay. Okay, insights, issues, and lessons learned. Not only for this project, but for other WMO initiatives, cultural and language similarities greatly facilitate collaboration. In Latin America, for example, from Mexico to Chile, 18 members speak the same language, Spanish, while in Brazil, Portuguese also allows us for effective communication with Spanish-speaking countries. So that really helped it, as I said, not only during this initiative, but other WMO initiatives as well. And speaking of languages, a couple of activities in our project involved translating resources with support from WMO. However, this proved unfeasible due to the very high costs in the end. For example, translating the Brazilian training alone, which lasts approximately 3 hours, would have cost 6,000 francs, which is a lot. And given this, maybe exploring AI-based tools could be an option for future initiatives. Also, we should take into account each organization's internal processes for receiving fundings. As I said, 2 of our COEs were unable to complete the process in time. Allowing flexibility in the training structure while maintaining some basic common elements proved to be an effective approach. Also, exploring and aligning the goals of existing initiatives whenever possible, such as VLab and Early Warnings for All in our case, is a very effective strategy as it allows collaboration with multiple initiatives through a single project. And that was very nice. And finally, please continue organizing hybrid events like this conference, because sharing our experiences with the international community was one of the goals of our project. And initially we had planned an in-person session, but given funding limitations and other little details, a hybrid format with virtual posters and virtual presentations proved to be the ideal solution in our case. So organizing hybrid events like this is highly recommended. Okay, and that's basically it. This was a brief summary of our regional pilot project, which proved to be a very positive experience. As I said, the VLab COEs from regional associations 3 and 4 are now much more engaged and ready for future collaborations. We believe that this partnership could serve as an inspiration for similar initiatives in other regional associations as well. And throughout the project, we maintain close contact with the other COEs, with NOAA as one of our satellite operators through CIRA and Bernie, as well with colleagues from the WMO space program, which was also a very positive regional experience, okay? And as proposed under this topic for CALMet, we consider this collaboration a success in delivering training to regional audiences and addressing training needs at the regional level, okay? So thank you very much, and if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diego Sousa. It was a very impressive presentation, I have to say, to see what you have done around the world in a global manner. And sorry not for reading first right the abbreviation, because today we are so deep in AI, and even you see, you always think, oh, there's something about the topic here. But I think we have to wait a few hours at the third day of the conference. I will have one question because I was still wondering, at least you have presented the WMO skills and the connection between the VLab and, yeah, this one, a certificate. You just have picked out some of the skills to combine them with each hazard, or how was it done at least?
It was a natural process. We had defined at the beginning of the project which hazards we would address. And then after the content was developed, we just, listed the skills covered during our training. So we developed the content first, and then we listed the skills covered on this training. Okay.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm just asking for that because as a human train project, it's just the other way, I can say. So
that would be the ideal situation. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, because every skill should be something like a use case then. That's a lot of work, but it's very similar, but from the other side, maybe you could say.
Yeah.
Are there...
That's something to improve in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, thank you very much for your wonderful presentation.
So, Diego, you mentioned that, 2 of the Centers of Excellence did it on a best effort. Do you think it also built on long-term collaborations between the groups? And as you alluded to also, that you were addressing needs that you have within your own countries, that you were, because you are a part of a group that delivers training for forecasters anyway.
Yes.
So can you comment on that a little bit more? Because a lot of collaborations have been ongoing over many years in the Americas.
Yeah. Regarding the funding, from the two COEs, INPE and UCR, for us at INPE, it was clear that we wouldn't be able to receive the funding since the beginning, because based on previous project, a year is not sufficient for us, given our lengthy process and all the paperwork that is needed. So right from the beginning, we knew that it wouldn't be possible. For the Anandes project from WMO, for example, it took like 3 years for us to receive funding. So yeah, it's something, for details from research institutions in Brazil. If it were from a university, it would be much easier, but details from our country. But for UCR, they really tried to advance the letters of undertaking throughout the process. So they had hope until the end. However, as we reached Q4, WMO mentioned that it would be hard for them to proceed and to receive this funding without advancing with the documentation on their side. So for INPE, it was easier. For UCR, it was harder because they really expected this funding since the beginning. So it really affected the delivery of their products, of their training. Could you please repeat your second question? Forgot.
Well, you say Brazil did have some cases that met
Yes.
2 of the hazards. And it sounds like, or from my perspective, they were cases that you were willing to, because you had already invested some training efforts.
Oh, yeah.
It just fit in with this. And so then it goes along also with piggybacking on other priorities or other projects. So
Yes, we had a major flood last year in the southern region in Brazil. 95% of one of our states have been affected, hundreds of losses. And we have been working on this case study for some months. Regina, for example, presented this case study in other sessions like the regional focus group and other training initiatives. So at the beginning of the project, when we did a survey to identify which hazards would be addressed by each COEs, floods was definitely something that we would want to cover. And thankfully, that was the case. And also squall lines. We had a very severe case here in Brazil this year. So yes, both cases were our focus, and we were already working on these cases for other initiatives, which really facilitated the development of these resources under the context of this project. Yes.